The prime thing is you have to win.
There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, Mark, settle down a little bit.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Just Win podcast. I'm Ted Wynn. That's Marshall Newhouse. And we are going to preview the Cowboys game today and give you some thoughts about what we saw from the All-22 from the Thursday night loss to the Denver Broncos. We did skip our usual live podcast right after the game. It was Thursday night. It was late. I don't think you guys wanted another rehashing of what happened after that miserable game. But I mean, I think there are some important takeaways from that game, in particular the offense that just failed to get going against a very good Denver Broncos offense, but they did have their chances and they just couldn't capitalize. And, you know, even against an elite defense, when you're that inept, I think it does warrant some discussion and some blame that has to be passed around. Marshall, what do you see from the game?
Yeah, it was just it's one of those games where you understand the Raiders are up against it. They're scrambling, trying to figure themselves out, and have a lot of questions to answer. And even with all those questions, they leave multiple touchdowns on the field and lose by 3 at home on a short week. And so you just like I'd never been more of in the fans' shoes than watching that game, just understanding, man, they gave it away. And they gave it away just not with things that are just unheard of or complicated, procedural penalties. And, a guy on a rub route extending his hands and dropping balls and bad protection and miscommunications and missed opportunities. And so that's, I think, the most frustrating thing. And I can imagine the fans are even more frustrated by that. And so, yeah, there are, I think, things that can be done, should be done. People week to week are just like, hey, should there be wholesale change from leadership all the way down? And I understand that, but the bottom line is they are not winning. They're not executing, but they're in the positions to. And so there's something there. And I'm not trying to be just weirdly positive, but the way I see it from a player's perspective is if they do their jobs on 5 more plays, can you say that they probably win that game? And so that's the tough part. It doesn't make it feel any better, but there are things there that can be fixed, I think, still, shockingly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I don't have a problem with the offense not performing well against an elite defense, but it's just the way that it happened that I think is disturbing. And, this is not a podcast where we're always calling for people's jobs and things like that. But like, this is another game after a really encouraging game by Chip Kelly against Jaguars, where they had a lot of success with 12 personnel. But this is just another game where I just didn't see them attack certain areas of weakness against the Broncos defense. Like, we talked about it before the podcast. The one area where you can get this defense is targeting your tight ends, and they were giving up the most yards per catch to tight ends in the league, and they couldn't get Brock Bowers going. And like, all right, if I thought maybe they double team Brock Bowers a lot.
That's what I said after the game. It was like, surely they had him covered top down, 2 pairs of eyes on him the whole game. But that wasn't the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you're getting Brock Bowers singled up in man coverage, and you couldn't find ways to get him the ball. They run mesh like, I don't know, 100 times in that game. Like, I get it. Like mesh, when you have 2 crossing patterns and you're trying to create a rub against man, but that's not the only answer against man coverage. And the Broncos have seen mesh a lot just based on the type of coverage they played. So they were able to, figure things out. And mesh was the concept where Dante Thornton did get called on the offensive pass interference. But I mean, you got to be better than that when you're trying to hide the fact that you are trying to create a rub. So I think with Chip Kelly, we're seeing a lot of the problems with college offensive coordinators that are making the jump into the league. The one is just they don't have a very diverse pass concept menu, and that works in college. But in the NFL, like when the other team knows what you're gonna do on 3rd and long, it's just hard to execute. And they run the same stuff over and over again. Protection scheme is an issue. Like you don't chip Nick Bonito for most of the game. You kind of leave him on an island with DJ Glaze. And then on top of it, you're going full slide away from him and you're having a running back block him. And then the pass concept behind that play makes no sense because you have a stick concept with play action. So the timing's all thrown off. And the timing with the passing game has been an issue all season. Like when a quarterback gets the top of his drop, there should be a receiver getting ready to get into his break. But so many times during the season, it just hasn't happened. And Gino's at fault too. Like you can't excuse him totally for his play. But this passing game is just a serious lack of detail in this passing game. And then on top of it was like the first down runs. I get wanting to get Ashton Genty going, but the way they did it against this defense, which was number one in success rate when they have their base personnel on the field, didn't make sense. Their first runs only netted a 33% success rate. By doing that, you're just wasting a play because you're putting yourself in a situation where you have to get to 3rd and long against this pass rush, and it's just creating a losing situation. So I think Chip Kelly should be on watch for the rest of the season. Take $6 million, and you have an island game against the Dallas Cowboys, in which we know owners do not like to get embarrassed in these games against one of the worst defenses in the league. I feel like if you don't, if the offense does not have a good performance against this type of defense, things might get shaken up.
Is the island game kind of the basketball's version of Cancun? Is that what that is?
No, it's like it's when you have a game that's just like on its own where everybody's watching, like a Monday night game
Monday
or a
night,
Sunday night
yeah,
game.
for sure, yeah. And with Chip Kelly, you talked about the diversity of the passing concepts, and that's been lacking for sure. And then to me, it's just we talk about you script either the first or second drive, so those are plays that are really well thought out. That's your best of your best against the matchup that week. But after that, I just don't see a lot of like progression as far as like setting concepts up to then pay off later with this offense. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of rhyme or reason to everything. And you've got multiple, now that Brock Bowers is back, you've got multiple weapons that could give you things to set up, whether that's tight end screens to Brock Bowers, whether that's him running over routes versus one-on-one coverage when he beats most linebackers and a lot of safeties, whether that's all kind of running concepts and then screens for Ashton Genty. You do things to set them up, and it seems like Chip Kelly is calling things just for the sake of calling them. And to me, NFL defenses are entirely too good. And we talked about leading up to this game, first and second down was going to be so crucial to get in manageable situations, so that third down, when the Broncos were at their best, you're preventing them, you're preventing Nick Bonito from making an impact. You're preventing their secondary, who's really good, from making as much of an impact. And then you're providing yourself an out where if it's 3rd and 9 and they just sometimes they cover everything, the check down is harder to convert. But when it's 3rd and 4, a check down moves the chains and it keeps you going. And so all these things should work in conjunction with each other. And again, it just feels like a very disjointed offense. And that's without a guy like JPJ going down with a really brutal ankle injury. And then if we were talking during the game, it just felt like Parham was just there 1 minute and gone the next. And so you're down multiple linemen within the game. And so I understand you become even more limited after that happens. And then, the big, most egregious part was for fans at home, a lot of the more complex pass protection schemes are full man or half man, and then like a slide with a duel, which is just, a way to pick up when there's more people than you can block. And then the QB's on the same page, you're on the same page. Well, you lose your 2 inside guards. I understand that maybe they want to simplify the protection schemes to not have guys as exposed, to not have them think as much. But what they went to on specifically that sack when Genty was on Benito was a full line slide, which is not unheard of. It happens, but you usually don't do it where the running back is in charge of the best pass rusher this season by production in the league. And so that was just a misstep. And I just don't know if that was something in game that was a intentional thought process. Be like, hey, all right, our 2 inside guards are down. We've got to adapt. That's fine. But while we're adapting, hey, watch out for that guy. We had every week in almost every team I was on, we paid extra attention to the elite guys. That's just not something you can ignore because they're too good. And so did they just forget for a moment that he is just elite off the edge of this season? I don't know. And so again, that just plays into everything else of intentionality and where is the why in the things that Chip Kelly calls and the things that they're doing on offense. I don't see a lot of the why. And I don't know if they're just hoping that Genty and Bowers can carry them. And we've seen there's not enough talent here to do things that way. Sometimes you can get bailed out when you're at Ohio State and you have the number 1 recruiting class every year. That's just not the case anymore. And so you would like to see Chip Kelly have some more semblance of feel for the game, but maybe that's just not this is now his second tenure in the NFL. Maybe that is just not what he's built for. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when you look at this defense and what they're doing, they're exceeding expectations. I mean, they're not like an elite defense or anything, but when you look at the roster coming into the season and where the money's allocated, they're exceeding expectations. They're playing better than what most people thought. But when you look at the offense, I think maybe expectations were a little too high for the offense coming in. But still, like this should not be an offense that is as bad as it is. I feel like there's enough to at least be a middling offense, but it just hasn't been that. So it's pretty disappointing to see the offensive
I'd like to
output.
also add, I mean, there's always rumors swirling about what could have been as far as, hires and stuff like that. The idea that what I heard was that Tom Brady was pushing for Matt Stafford, which we knew they were in contention for, and Ben Johnson is also just insult to injury because those two guys, we talk about all the things that are going wrong with the Raiders right now. Those two guys aren't just like a perfect solution. There is no perfect solution, but the things that they do on a week-to-week basis will put you in position where your floor is just so much higher because they're thinking through the reasons why you're successful on offense and in football. And so that's got to really sting as well. It does. If there's any truth to that, I'm not sure. I'm not in the rumor business, but if there's any truth to that, that's a tough pill to swallow for the Raiders, losing out on those two guys, seeing what we're seeing from the production level on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if Chip Kelly was a Pete Carroll hire or a Tom Brady hire, but when you just look at the hires that Pete Carroll has made in his last few years in Seattle and with the Raiders, even with special teams coach who just got fired, it's not been inspiring. And one of the big duties of a CEO type of head coach is to make good hires, and that has not been a strength for Pete Carroll in recent years. But that's a whole conversation for a different pod. But let's talk about what the Raiders have to do to beat the Cowboys on Monday night. So again, this is there's gonna be a lot of eyes on the Raiders. Last time they played Detroit on the Monday night game and got embarrassed. Josh McDaniel got fired that same week. So yeah, owners do not like to get embarrassed in these types of games. So we'll see what happens. But this Cowboys defense, we're going to be talking about what the Raiders have to do when they have the ball. This Cowboys defense is among one of the worst in the league, 29th in EPA per dropback, 32nd in defensive success rate versus the run. I think they will be better because they did make a trade for Christian Barmore, who to me is, I haven't watched him this year, so I don't know if he's really fallen off or it's just kind of the Jets, as a whole.
You mean Quinnen?
Yeah, Quinnen Williams.
Williams. Yeah. No, you're good.
Yeah, Quinnen Williams.
Yeah, so he's been stout against the run. His production in the past game has fallen off, but also, Jets it's hard to tell when a guy leaves that facility what the production will be. But Jerry seems very convinced about the value there and was looking to make a move. But they have bigger problems, as do the Raiders. I mean, they're kind of in similar boats outside of having a Dak Prescott. And I think Schottenheimer positively is a pretty good hire. Maybe not a home run, but like they can be a winning team with the offense that they have if the defense gets figured out. But on the back end, just been a really abysmal year for the Cowboys on defense. And then, inside the tackle box, stopping the run has just been really rough for them. Micah Parsons was not going to be the end-all, be-all savior for them. They just had too many holes. But now Kenny Clark, Quinton Williams, at least inside, you're a little bit more stout. But the Raiders, we'll see what the Raiders have, because there's, we're not sure about the lineup and what the inside will look like specifically with the guards that are playing now that JPJ is on IR. But they'll be challenged inside for sure. But again, this is an opportunity, kind of like we were talking about going into the Bears game, where this defense gives you an opportunity to establish the run, but give you a chance to see what Genty can do, and see what kind of schemes Chip Kelly has that will put this offense in a better position to score points and complete drives. And so the Cowboys have their own issues, but the Raiders have chances to take advantage for sure.
Yeah, and to me, the inside will be a little bit more stout, especially when you pair Quinn Williams with Kenny Clark, who's a pretty good run defender. To me, I think you want to get to the perimeter. Some of the best runs that they've had this year are perimeter runs. You saw that in the Broncos game. One got called back on a holding penalty that really did not affect the play. So to me, I think you want to expand on your perimeter run menu, as not just outside zone, but just tossing the ball and trying to get to the perimeter as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And kind of lessening the impact of the guards, especially now that you're a little bit weaker in that position. So yeah, you want to try to get the perimeter on this defense. They're not a good tackling defense. Their linebackers are probably the worst part of their defense, if not their corners. Kenneth Murray, he should not be starting in the NFL anymore, but he's still starting with the Cowboys. So I think that's I felt like last game was not a game where you wanted to start with the run game, but this is a game where you wanted to get that run game going any way you can.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Brock Bowers being the weapon that he is, poses a threat to the Cowboys via their linebackers. And he's going to allow Geno Smith, who will see how healthy he is. He was pretty hobbled at the end of that Denver game. We'll see how healthy he is. Obviously, I don't think there's a lot of doubt about him starting, but his mobility, which he's an older quarterback, was already down. We'll see how that will go. But what will they have for the Cowboys as far as getting Brock Bowers touches? Because the thing that was the most egregious, as we talked about leading the show from last week, was he had that 31-yard reception, and then we just never heard his name again. Like, that can't happen unless there's just an outsized effort by the defense to take him away, and that just wasn't the case. And it just it bewilders you a little bit watching the film. It's like, what, why was there not a more concerted effort to creatively get him the ball and catch and run opportunities, or stop routes, zone beaters over the ball, or just like getting a mismatch on the linebacker or safety. It's just all the ways that Brock Bowers can be an asset for you. It didn't seem like they were utilizing them as much, and a lot of that was the protection, but they held up okay at times, and it gave Geno enough of a pocket. It just felt like the Broncos were dialed into, like you said, the limited pass concepts. And so this week, Genty hopefully gets some outside runs. He has his vision is really exceptional for a rookie when he gets out on the edges. And so letting blocks set up for him. I think there's an opportunity for Jack Bech to kind of redeem himself from that holding call, which, you hope they don't throw, but he can't put himself in that position. He's got to let go. But Jack Bech on the edge as a run blocking receiver is an asset. And so you couple that with Genty getting these guards with less experience, less ability, just on the move, running in space, and seeing what Genty can do, I think will lend itself to then coming back with play action under center, hopefully to Brock Bowers, and using he and Michael Mayer in 12 personnel as we can continue to harp on. It seems like we're being repetitive, but it's not necessarily you being a follower. It's you capitalizing on the trends of the defense as well. The defenses are trying to either match those personnel, and so you've got mismatches against the tight ends in coverage, or their linebacker bodies that they just have that the league has adapted to just can't sustain repeated runs at them and all the kind of creative ways you can run with two tight end sets. And so we hope that the Raiders have a plan, at very least a plan to capitalize on those situations and get their two major playmakers the ball. I'd rather die that way than these guys kind of bored during the game because they're just not seeing any action.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, if you lose and you spam Brock Bowers targets, like 13 targets, I would not be blaming you. So you have to find a way to give him the ball. The Cowboys are a very zone-heavy team. Matt Eberflus, their defensive coordinator, is he's a base cover 2, cover 3 type of guy, and they run zone as much as anyone in the league. But they do have like against the Commanders, they went heavy man as a changeup. So I think if they don't respect your receivers, which they might come into this game with that sort of thought, they might go to a man-heavy script and just try to double Brock Bowers and leave one-on-ones with everyone else. So we'll see if they do decide to play a lot of zone. Then you have Bowers running free and just trying to find those holes in the zones. But if they do that, then you have to get somebody like Trey Tucker to burn that man coverage when it does present itself. And when they aren't doubling Bowers, you got to make sure he gets his targets versus man coverage, because there's really nobody that could cover him one-on-one on that Cowboys defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got on the defensive side, you've got a really high-flying offense that's capable of putting up points, but they've had some of their own issues. But that is not the Cowboys' problem. And so the Raiders on defense, there's been weird talk this week about Max Crosby's performance, which is odd. It came from Aqib Talib, so we know what that's all about. But everyone else on defense, they're on different levels, I think have played okay, winnable. I mean, you hold a team to 10 points and you just, whether it's Bo Nix or not and his inaccuracies, you say that's winning opportunity on defense. We saw Caillou Plou redeem himself. I mean, he had a really good game, give him all the credit in the world. And so you hope that there's a little bit of a consistency from one week to the next. I wouldn't bet on it, but you hope that there's maybe something coming alive with this defense against the Cowboys offense that is explosive, but will absolutely give you opportunities. George Pickens is not the crispest route runner. He's a one-on-one matchup nightmare, but he will make a mistake. He'll do something dumb sometimes. And so if you're Max Crosby, if you're the defensive backfield, you're just waiting for your moment and then trying to keep this game close. So the offense, hopefully something clicks and they can make this game competitive, because it can get away from them. The Cowboys don't play great defense, but their offense can run away with the game.
Yeah, for sure. It's statistically one of the better offenses in the league. 6th in points per drive, 5th in explosive rush rate. And Clayton Adams is their offensive coordinator. I feel like he's one of the better hires of this offseason, because it's a good way of getting a really good offensive line, or hiring away a really good offensive line coach, is making him giving him that offensive line coach title. And they've developed their offensive line. Tyler Booker, to me, is one of the better draft picks in the first round. He's been a really good at guard for them. Tyler Smith is an amazing guard, one of the best young guards in the league. Tyler Guyton, the 3 Tylers. Tyler Guyton, their left tackle, is a guy that's developing, but the physical traits are there. So to me, when this Cowboys offense is really rolling is when the ground game is going, because you have to play too deep to cover CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in his passing game. And then when they could really take advantage of it and explode on the ground, that's when they're really hard to stop. So this is kind of the opposite game of that Broncos game where they did a pretty good job of stopping a run. They came out in like a 6-2 front, and I think that surprised the Broncos. Sean Payton came out and said like the Raiders did some surprising things against them, and I think really loading up against a run was something that was effective against the Broncos, but you can't do that against this Cowboys team. You're gonna have to have an opposite approach where you have to stop the run with lighter boxes. In the games where I think defenses were able to do that, I think that's when they struggled. So we'll see if the Raiders are able to do that with the 6-7 man front, because you're not going to be able to come out in a 6-2 against this offense.
Yeah, well put. Definitely. You're gonna have to take away, the threat of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. They move CeeDee Lamb in motion a lot. They kind of change positions for him and change the look for defenses. And so, yeah, that leaves opportunities for Javonte Williams and company, who he's still explosive. I didn't love that signing by Dallas because I just think they needed a higher echelon of a running back. But again, with the way that they've give Jerry the credit when it's due, the way they've drafted and developed their offensive line has really made Javonte Williams a serviceable running back in this offense that does take advantage and runs really, really hard. And so the Raiders will have to account for him while they're probably in a top down shell defense.
Yeah. I think the Raiders have typically stopped the run because they're able to get that extra man in the box. So this is going to be a different type of challenge for them. What are the matchups that you're going to be looking for in this game?
I'm looking for inside. I mean, Quentin Williams, he's new. Kenny Clark is new from the trade week 1. But listen, Jackson Powers Johnson was coming along. He was the Raiders' best lineman after Colton Miller went down. And whether we see Parham or not, I'm not sure if we've seen the injury report. There's going to be a lot of shuffling going on with Alex Kappa and Grant and deciding where they're going to play. And so the inside of this line is going to have to really be galvanized and work together. I imagine there's going to be concepts that Chip Kelly, they've been working on to kind of help them both in the run and the pass game, maybe running traps inside, which we lauded early this season because they were forcing it. But this might be an opportunity to run traps because it puts the pressure on these interior defensive tackles. And then in pass pro, they're going to have to just be – I would. This is kind of inside baseball. I'd like to see some of these guys jump setting Quentin Williams, jump setting Kenny Clark, not letting them get into your chest and push the pocket from the inside and give Geno somewhere to step up. That requires coordination and really good hands, really good leverage, and an attack plan, like a mental plan before you go into the game. And you're just like, well, I'm just going to get in front of him. And so I hope that there's more of intentionality but whoever we see start at guard. I don't know if practice has shown you anything, if you heard anything. But to me, the big matchup for me is the 2 guards in the center and Dallas's interior defensive line.
Yeah, I believe Parham is going to play. He did practice, so Parham will play. Kappa looks like the starter for now, but Charles Rogers did say that Pete did say that he's getting more reps. So I think they're getting him ready to potentially rotate in there. So maybe he won't be this game. Maybe we'll see him if Kappa really struggles. I don't think we'll see Grant anytime soon, but Rogers is a possibility in the coming futures. My matchup to watch out for is Marquise Bell against Brock Bowers. I mean, I just think if you get single coverage, Marquise Bell, their strong safety on Brock Bowers, that's a matchup you go to every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything I said and we've said before about Brock Bowers applies. Getting him targets, getting him mismatches, and letting him use his athletic ability and as a receiving tight end. He's just incredible. And it's a shame that he has an incredible game 2 games ago and then he just disappears just because they stopped targeting him. And so that can't be the way that you lose a game. Like I said before, you go down swinging with your best guys, and they've got to find a way to get the ball in his hands.
Mine's my X factor for this game is Caillou Blue, who had a bounce back game against the Broncos. Got a little lucky with a couple of interceptions thrown right to him. But this is a game where they're probably going to single up George Pickens against Caillou Blue. And if you double cover CeeDee Lamb, then you might have to live with a few one-on-ones with Caillou Blue to George Pickens, who is a vertical ball specialist. And if Caillou Blue can defend a couple of those vertical balls, that could be what makes a difference in this game.
I'm going to stick in that same kind of category and kind of do a twofer with Darren Porter and Stokes, and who roams with CeeDee Lamb. Because as I talked about earlier, he doesn't stay stationary. They play him at X, so they'll move him in the slot. They'll put him on the same side as George Pickens to really kind of put you in a conflict about who you're going to cover. And so does one guy travel with him all game, or do they kind of bracket him or pass off responsibilities both in zone and in man? It'll be interesting to see what they do, because they know, that the Cowboys will move CeeDee Lamb around, try to get him. He and Dak have this really good connection with in-cutting routes coming out of the slot. He has this incredible release. He's tough to cover, but if the Raiders hopefully have a plan for him, and I don't know if that means one guy has got him or they're inside and outing him, when he goes in motion. So that, to me, Darren Porter, Eric Stokes, and company, maybe there might be another guy involved in that approach to kind of shadow CeeDee Lamb, knowing that Pickens and Caillou Blue will kind of be mostly matched up.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the Cowboys have done really well throughout the years, is just find ways to single up CeeDee Lamb and take him away from double coverage. And they do that, like you mentioned, with motion, moving around the formation all over the place. So yeah, you got to be able to stop CeeDee first. Predictions, what do you think?
I kind of tried to zig when everyone was zagging last week, thinking there'd be a few more points scored. I didn't account for, not only the Raiders struggling, but Bo Nix himself having just a rough patch. But I think this week, given that it's Monday Night Football, not Thursday Night Football, there's going to be a lot of points put on the board. Listen, if the Raiders can get a couple of turnovers, the Caillou Blue turnovers were really exceptional, because they got Raiders out of a couple jams that they put themselves in, and then it really gave them good field position. If they can get one or two of those this game, I think they have a chance to really keep it close. Give me the Raiders 27, the Cowboys 24.
I like that. But to me, I want to pick the Raiders in this one, because I feel like it's going to be one of those wacky Monday night games that the Raiders could pull off. But I think the matchup that actually makes this game will be Brandon Aubrey against Daniel Carlson, because it's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of points, and you have Brandon Aubrey who missed a long kick in the last game, playing in a dome, in the Raiders arena. It's just like the Cowboys moved the ball 15 yards and they're in field goal range,
Yeah.
And Carlson's been kind of struggling. He's been in a funk, so I think that might make a difference. So I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I think Chip Kelly, coaching for his job, will get this offense going. But I think ultimately field goals end up making this game. So I'm gonna say Cowboys 30, Raiders 24.
All right, I like that. And yeah, on that point, just with kickers, but we'll see what the Raiders do on special teams. Obviously, you get your coordinator fired, and Malcolm Kuntz was got to let a punt be blocked, and Carlson has not had a great season. So there's multiple pain points for this team on special teams. And whoever's the interim calling, pass punt rushes, punt protection, field goal rush, field goal protection, and kickoffs. What do the Raiders do as far as just staying neutral? Like, they just can't be the reason that you lose. And so, but that's difficult to do when you lose a coordinator who is in charge of all that. So that'll be kind of the underlying storyline that goes in concert with the two kickers dueling there in the dome. And, Aubrey, like, as you said, is just such a weapon. He just takes your range for scoring points. Like, it's and including the footballs being doctored or, adjusted, we'll say, this season. I think that's a really good point to make, that Carlson has a lot to prove. I think his seat is hot as well, among other people for the Raiders, and so we'll see if he can perform.
Yeah, they signed Greg Joseph, former Vikings kicker, to the practice squad. So that is some competition and a sign that they are ready to move on from Carlson if he continues to struggle. So that's an issue to watch out for too. But that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and rate and review on Spotify and Apple. Marshall, great stuff as always. And we will talk to you guys live after the game.
Appreciate it. See y'all.